John Miller stared out the viewport of the diplomatic shuttle as it approached the massive ring-shaped station. This was it. After decades of sending signals into space, humanity had finally been answered. Not by one alien civilization, but by 17. The Galactic Council had existed for over 3,000 years. Compared to them, Earth was a child still learning to walk. John straightened his uniform and checked his reflection in the polished surface of the console. The weight of 7 billion humans rested on his shoulders today. 2 minutes to docking, said Lisa Green, his second in command. Ready to make history. John nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. The shuttle glided into the docking bay. John noticed how small their vessel looked compared to the elegant ships of the other species. The human delegation, 6 people total, waited for the airlock to cycle before stepping onto Council ground for the first time. They were met by beings that defied imagination. Some floated on anti-gravity platforms. Others moved on multiple legs or slithered across the floor. The tallest stood nearly 10 feet high with skin like polished amber. "Welcome, humans," said a blue-skinned being with 4 arms and eyes that changed color as it spoke. "I am Ambassador Zix Troll of the Council Leadership Committee. Your species has been granted an audience." John stepped forward and bowed slightly. "We are honored to be here, Ambassador. I am John Miller, representing Earth and all human colonies in our solar system." Zix Troll's eyes shifted to a pale yellow, which John would later learn indicated mild amusement. "Yes, your single colony on your single moon. Most impressive for such a young species." Several of the alien delegates made sounds that might have been laughter. John kept his face neutral even as he felt his cheeks warm. The council chamber was enormous, with seating for hundreds of delegates arranged in rising tiers. The human delegation was assigned a small section near the back. As they took their seats, John noticed how the other species watched them, some with obvious curiosity, others with what seemed like dismissal. The session began with ceremonial introductions. Each species stood and recited their accomplishments. The Draxidae had mapped 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The Venshar had developed the quantum communication network that connected all council worlds. The Morven had ended a plague that threatened a third of all sentient life 5 centuries ago. When it was humanity's turn, John spoke of Earth's recovery from environmental damage, the unification of nations, and their first faster-than-light test flight just 15 years ago. An elder Morven leaned toward his colleague. "They're still celebrating their first proper starship. My grandchildren build such devices for amusement." Lisa Green shifted in her seat. John touched her arm, silently asking for patience. After the formalities, the council presented the terms for humanity's probationary membership. Humans would be permitted limited trade rights. Earth could establish diplomatic relations but would have no vote in council decisions. Human ships would be restricted to designated travel lanes and subject to inspection at any time. "These terms are standard for species at your development level," Zix Troll explained. "In 50 years, your status will be reviewed." John thanked the council for their generosity while carefully hiding his disappointment. As the session ended, he approached Zix Troll with concerns about pirate activity reported near Earth's trade routes. "Pirates rarely bother with primitive worlds," Zix Troll said, eyes now aboard gray. "They seek technology and resources worth stealing." "But our colonies might be vulnerable," Lisa insisted. "We need defensive options." Zix Troll made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "Your species is too fragile to worry about such things. Focus on developing your civilization. The council protects its members." As they returned to their shuttle, Lisa fumed. "They think we're helpless children." John smiled slightly. "Then they haven't studied Earth's history very carefully, have they? Humans have always been at their most dangerous when underestimated." He looked back at the council station growing smaller behind them. None of those advanced species had evolved as persistence hunters. None had developed through constant adaptation rather than specialization. None understood what it meant to be human. And that was their first mistake. 6 months after joining the Galactic Council, The mining colony on Proxima Centauri IV went silent. Frank Nelson was directing the night shift when the communication systems failed. At first, he thought it was just a technical problem. Then the perimeter alarm sounded. "Unidentified ships entering orbit," reported Sam Jenkins from the security station. 5 vessels, not responding to hails. Frank looked at the grainy image on the screen and felt his stomach tighten. The ships had the asymmetrical design of Phyrexian raiders. The Council had warned about them. Nomadic aliens who attacked isolated outposts for supplies and slaves. "Sound the alert," Frank ordered, "but keep it quiet. No sirens." Instead of panic, the colonists moved with practiced calm. Earth had been sending people to dangerous places for centuries. Every colonist trained for emergencies before leaving home. "They'll land near the main compound," Frank told the gathered section leaders in the command center. "They expect us to either fight directly or hide in our bunkers." Ellen Ward, the mining chief, pointed at the map. "So we do neither." For the next hour, the 300 colonists prepared. Mining equipment was repurposed into traps. Pressure suits were distributed. Families moved to the secondary shelters built into the mountain. The colony's small security team positioned themselves not to win a battle, but to control the invaders' movement. When the Phyrexians landed, they found what appeared to be a hastily abandoned colony. They moved in groups of 3, their scaled bodies covered with combat armor, searching buildings with weapons drawn. The first trap was triggered near the refinery. A mining laser, modified and hidden, cut through the leg armor of 2 raiders. The second trap flooded a corridor with mining foam that hardened in seconds, trapping 3 more. The Phyrexians responded with anger, firing blindly and destroying equipment. This was exactly what Frank had predicted. The raiders' reputation described them as impulsive and prone to emotional reactions when frustrated. From her position in the ventilation shaft, Ellen watched the lead Phyrexian mark orders. His soldiers spread out, making them easier to isolate. The colonists picked them off in small groups, using their knowledge of the facility to appear and disappear like ghosts. By the second day, the Phyrexians controlled only the landing pad and the main administrative building. Their commander was furious, having lost a third of his force to a supposedly defenseless human colony. "They're planning something bigger," Frank told the others when they gathered in the emergency bunker. "Their scans will show we're still here. They'll want to make an example of us." Sam nodded. "Good. That's exactly what we want." The colonists set their final trap. They made it appear as if all the remaining humans were hiding in one of the secondary storage facilities. The Phyrexians took the bait, concentrating their forces for an overwhelming attack. They never noticed the small modifications to their own ships until Ellen's team activated the colony's atmosphere processors at maximum power, directly below the landing pad. The sudden pressure change caused 2 Phyrexian vessels to lose balance and crash into each other, creating a chain reaction that disabled all but one of their ships. When the Council peacekeepers arrived 3 days after the initial attack, they expected to find death and destruction. Instead, they found most of the Phyrexian raiders captured or dead, and the human colony operational with minimal casualties. "How is this possible?" asked the Jurkal commander of the peacekeeping force. "The Phyrexians outgunned you. Their technology is superior." Frank shrugged as if it were obvious. "We're miners. We solve problems with what we have available." The report to the Galactic Council described the incident as a remarkable stroke of luck. The Council representatives praised the unusual resourcefulness of the humans, but classified it as an isolated event. None of them noticed the pattern that was beginning to emerge. None of them realized that human history was filled with supposedly weaker groups defeating technologically superior forces through adaptation and asymmetric tactics. None of them recognized the predator hiding in plain sight. Philip Carter noticed things that others missed. As a mid-level bureaucrat in the Council's Cultural Exchange Office, he spent his days reading reports from across the galaxy. Most of his colleagues found the work boring. Philip found it revealing. Have you noticed how humans consume information? He asked Karen Williams over lunch in the staff cafeteria of the Earth Embassy on Centauri Station. Karen looked up from her tablet. What do you mean? Most species study what they need. Pelaxians focus on biology. Turvan excel at physics. Humans study everything, even subjects with no practical value to them. Karen smiled slightly. It was true. Since joining the Council, humans had requested access to every archive, database, and educational program available. Earth's universities had created new departments overnight to study alien cultures, technologies, and histories. We're curious, she said simply. Philip nodded. Curious enough that I think we should establish our own information network. 3 months later, the first Galactic Information Repository opened on Earth. To the Council, it appeared to be a public service, humans organizing the galaxy's scattered knowledge in one accessible system. Council members praised the initiative as the kind of project perfect for a junior species looking to contribute. None of them realized it was the beginning of the most successful intelligence operation in galactic history. By the second year, over 60% of all Council data requests passed through human-managed systems. Most species saw this as humans performing useful administrative work. They failed to notice that every query, every search, every access request was analyzed and cataloged by people like Philip and Karen. The Morven Trade Delegation is requesting information about Draxity mining operations again, Karen noted during a secure meeting at the repository's analysis center beneath Geneva. Third time this month. Philip added the information to their growing map of Council politics and economic movements. And the Jurkal are researching Morven agricultural systems. Interesting. Day by day, humans built their understanding of how the galaxy truly functioned. They learned which species were allies behind closed doors and which were secret rivals. They identified economic vulnerabilities, political pressure points, and military capabilities that even some Council members didn't know about their neighbors. In the 5th year of Human Council membership, Karen was appointed as a junior aide to the Council Commerce Committee. The position was considered minor, humans handling data and scheduling meetings. No one noticed when she recommended slight changes to trade route allocations or subtle adjustments to resource distribution agreements. We've placed our people in 37 key positions across Council administration, Philip reported to the Earth Government's Strategic Planning Division. All seen as helpful assistants and administrative staff. None recognized as having any real power. On the screens around him, data flowed showing the movement of ships, goods, and information across Council space. Nearly all of it now passed through systems with human oversight. The Council's economic advisors are suggesting policy changes based on our analysis reports. Karen added from her chair at the table. They think they're making the decisions. Earth's Vice Minister nodded approvingly. And our commercial expansion. Human companies now handle 16% of all interstellar shipping, Philip said. We manage 22% of all raw material processing. Council species are happy to give us these service industry roles while they focus on what they consider more prestigious sectors. No one in the Council chambers noticed when human representatives began finishing each other's sentences in different meetings across different star systems. No one realized that Earth now possessed a more complete map of galactic power than the Council's own central archives. No one understood that humans had created a nervous system that extended throughout Council space, collecting and processing information at a scale no single alien species could comprehend. By the time anyone might have noticed, humans had already become essential to the functioning of galactic society. The predator had established itself in the ecosystem, not through force, but through quiet, patient observation of its environment. And the galaxy continued to underestimate them. Dr. Alan Brooks stared at the test results on his screen for the 5th time. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. His team had been working on quantum lattice patterns for only 3 years, while other Council species had studied them for centuries. Run it again, he told his assistant. There has to be a mistake. But there wasn't. Somehow, his human team had discovered what 17 alien species had missed, a way to synthesize quantum lattice crystals, the rare resource that powered faster than light travel across the galaxy. Until now, these crystals could only be mined from specific asteroid fields. Some species had built their entire economies around controlling these resources. The Council carefully regulated crystal distribution to maintain the balance of power. And now humans could make them in a lab. Ellen immediately contacted Patricia Owens at the Strategic Resources Division. "If this is real, we need to keep it quiet," Patricia said after reviewing the data. "The economic impact would be massive. But we should share this with the Council," Alan argued. "Think of the benefits to all species." Patricia shook her head. "We will share it, just not all at once." Over the next 6 months, Earth quietly established small research outposts in remote systems. Each facility began limited production of synthetic crystals. At the same time, human companies started purchasing struggling mining operations throughout Council space. "No one looks twice when we buy the failing mines," Patricia explained to Earth's Leadership Council. "They think we don't know any better." By the 3rd year of secret production, Earth controlled enough synthetic crystal supply to begin gradually introducing it to the market. The initial crystals were mixed with naturally mined ones and sold through various front companies across different systems. The Council Economics Committee is puzzled by the sudden increase in crystal availability, reported Beth Davis, Earth's representative to the committee. But they attribute it to improved mining techniques. Alien economists debated theories about the changing market. None suspected that humans were creating the very resource that powered galactic travel and commerce. In the 4th year, several major mining corporations faced bankruptcy due to falling crystal prices. Human companies, directed by Patricia's team, offered to purchase these operations at generous prices. "The Draxity Mining Consortium has accepted our offer," Patricia told Alan during their weekly meeting. "With this acquisition, we now control nearly 40% of all crystal supply in Council space." Alan looked troubled, and no one has noticed the pattern. "They see separate events, not the connections between them," Patricia explained. "The Venshar are grateful when we purchase their failing mines. The Morven are pleased when we establish new trade routes through their territories. No one species sees the complete picture." Meanwhile, Earth continued to improve the synthesis process. What began in Alan's small lab had expanded to a network of production facilities, hidden throughout human-controlled space. The original team of 12 scientists had grown to over 3,000 researchers working on different aspects of crystal technology. At a Grand Council ceremony celebrating cooperation among species, the Jerkal High Minister praised humans for their contributions to galactic trade. "Your species has shown remarkable adaptability," the minister said to Earth's delegation. "You have found your place among the stars by serving the needs of all." The human representatives smiled politely at what was meant as a compliment, but was actually a subtle reminder of their supposed lower status. None of the council leaders realized they were now dependent on human-controlled resources for their ships, their communications, their very way of life. When a small energy crisis affected 3 systems in the Orion Arm, human ships arrived first with emergency crystal supplies. The affected species were grateful for the rapid response. "Humans may lack the advanced technology of other council members," noted a Palaxian news broadcast, "but their willingness to help compensates for their limitations." Patricia smiled as she watched the report in her office. The crystal in her hand, manufactured, not mined, caught the light and scattered it in beautiful patterns. The Predator had secured its first essential resource without firing a single shot. Captain William Russell stood in the observation deck of Earth's newest ship, the EDF Horizon. Unlike the elegant, specialized vessels of other council species, the Horizon looked plain and functional. This was exactly as William wanted it. "Council inspection team is requesting permission to board," reported his first officer. William nodded. "Let them see everything on the approved list." The Galactic Council required inspections of all military vessels from probationary members. Most species try to impress the inspectors with advanced technology. Humans took a different approach. "This is your weapon system?" asked the Morven inspector, looking at what appeared to be a simple projectile launcher. "Yes," William answered. "We're still learning. Much of your energy weapon technology is beyond our manufacturing capabilities." What William didn't mention was that the simple-looking system could be reconfigured in minutes to fire 8 different types of ammunition, each designed for specific tactical situations. While Council species built specialized weapons for specific threats, humans built adaptable ones. Back on Earth, in a facility buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Susan Taylor supervised the most ambitious military program in human history. Team 6 has completed reverse engineering of the Venshar shield modulators, an aide reported. Team 9 has identified the weakness in Draxity stealth systems. Susan nodded. For 5 years, her division had systematically studied every piece of military technology they could access. They didn't try to copy alien designs. Instead, they learned the principles behind them and developed countermeasures. "The Council still thinks we're decades away from building our own advanced fleet," Susan told her staff. "Let's keep it that way." When the aggressive Krell Imperium, a non-Council power from the galaxy's outer arm, attacked a Jurkal science outpost, 3 human ships were in nearby space on a training mission. The Council expected them to call for help and retreat. Instead, the small human squadron changed course and engaged the Krell raiders. The Council observation post watched in shock as the supposedly primitive human vessels executed maneuvers that seemed impossible for their design. When the Krell fired energy weapons, the human ships adjusted their shields to specific frequencies. When the Krell deployed stealth drones, the humans tracked them with sensors that shouldn't have been able to detect them. "How are they doing this?" asked a Palaxian observer. By the time Council reinforcements arrived, the human ships had driven off the Krell force despite being outnumbered. 1 human vessel was damaged, but none were destroyed. In the official report, the human commander described their success as lucky timing and good training. The Council praised human bravery but attributed the victory to Krell overconfidence. None of them realized that every second of the battle had been recorded and analyzed by human intelligence. Every Krell weapon signature, shield frequency, and tactical maneuver was now in Susan's database. 2 months later, at the Earth Defense Force headquarters, William presented the findings to the Joint Chiefs. "We now have combat data on Krell capabilities," he explained. "Combined with our previous analysis, we've identified 14 exploitable weaknesses in their systems." An admiral nodded. "And the Council forces?" "They still deploy according to traditional doctrines," Susan added. "They haven't adapted their tactics in over 300 years. They have no concept of combined arms or asymmetric warfare." Across human space, shipyards quietly built vessels that looked unremarkable from the outside. Inside, they contained systems specifically designed to counter the capabilities of every known alien fleet, Council and non-Council alike. During a diplomatic reception on Centauri Station, a Draxity military attaché commented on the growing human fleet. "Your ships are numerous but simple," he said to William. "Quality matters more than quantity in space combat." William smiled politely. "We're just trying to do our part for Council defense with the limited technology available to us." The Draxity nodded, satisfied with what he saw as human acknowledgement of their inferior position. Neither he nor any other Council military leader recognized that they were witnessing the rise of the most adaptable fighting force the galaxy had ever seen, a predator that studied its prey before striking. Dr. Megan Walsh moved quietly through the medical research facility beneath Denver. Unlike the military and resource projects, her work required absolute secrecy. Not even the Council knew this place existed. "How is the Thoraxian sample analysis coming along?" she asked her assistant. "Complete," he replied, handing her a tablet. "Their respiratory system has an unusual vulnerability to copper-based compounds." Megan nodded and added the information to her database. What had begun as a legitimate medical research program had evolved into something far more comprehensive. 5 years earlier, when a human colony suffered an outbreak of an alien virus, Earth requested medical data from the Council. The response was limited and condescending. Council medical experts considered human biology primitive and saw little value in sharing advanced medical knowledge. They think we're too simple to understand their science, Megan had told the Earth Security Council. This leaves us vulnerable. The Security Council authorized her to create a special research division with a dual purpose: develop medical treatments for humans and thoroughly study alien biology. Now, Megan's team had compiled detailed biological profiles of every known sentient species. They understood alien physiologies better than many of the species understood themselves. The Pelaxians have 3 types of immune cells we can potentially target, noted a researcher working at a nearby station. Their medical literature doesn't even identify the 3rd type. They've overlooked it. This was a common finding. Many council species had evolved in specific environments and developed specialized biological systems. They often had blind spots about their own vulnerabilities, gaps that Megan's team meticulously documented. Meanwhile, human medical technology advanced rapidly by incorporating ideas from multiple alien approaches rather than following a single evolutionary path. When reports came of a strange new disease spreading through Thoraxian systems, the Council's medical response was divided and ineffective. Each species approached the problem from their specialized perspective, missing the broader pattern. They're treating the symptoms individually, Megan observed as she reviewed Council medical bulletins. No one is looking at the complete pathogen life cycle. Within weeks, her team had identified the disease's reproductive mechanism and developed a potential vaccine. Megan debated whether to share their findings, but ultimately recognized the strategic value of helping. Earth offered the vaccine as a humanitarian gesture. The Council accepted with surprise and gratitude. The pandemic was contained, and human medical expertise gained new respect. What no Council member realized was that this was just one application of human understanding of Thoraxian biology. In secured vaults below Megan's main laboratory, her team stored detailed files on every known biological vulnerability of each Council species, along with potential countermeasures labeled for emergency use only. At the same time, human genetic researchers quietly developed subtle enhancements to their own species. Unlike the obvious genetic engineering practiced by some Council races, human modifications were designed to be invisible. Slightly improved night vision, enhanced lung capacity, faster wound healing. Changes that wouldn't be noticed in routine medical scans. The Council still views humans as physically fragile, Megan told the Earth Security Council during her annual report. They don't realize how quickly we're adapting. At a medical conference on Centauri Station, a Jurkal physician remarked on human resilience. Your species recovers from injuries that would permanently disable most others, she noted with professional curiosity. Yet your medical technology seems basic. Megan smiled. Humans have always been good at healing. It's a natural advantage from our evolutionary history. The Jurkal accepted this explanation without further questions. Like most Council species, she couldn't conceive that a primitive species might understand biological systems more comprehensively than her own people did. Across human space, medical facilities quietly prepared treatments for every known alien disease, countermeasures for every biological weapon, and enhancements for human capabilities. Always subtle, always deniable. The predator was ensuring its survival against any possible threat, studying the weaknesses of every potential competitor while strengthening itself. And still, no one noticed. The Krell Imperium attack began without warning. 50 warships emerged from hyperspace near the Pelaxian homeworld, their weapons already charging. By the time the Council emergency alert sounded, 3 major systems had fallen. In the Council emergency chamber, representatives from 17 species argued over the proper response. The Jurkal wanted to negotiate. The Draxidae insisted on full military mobilization. The Morvans suggested retreating to defensible positions. "We must combine our fleets," said the Venchar delegate, "but who will command them? Our tactics are not compatible." The room fell silent as the delegates looked at each other. For 3,000 years, the Council had maintained peace through separation of powers. No single species was permitted to command the combined military might of all others. General Peter Garcia sat quietly in the human section, waiting. Earth's military was considered too primitive to matter in this crisis. Yet he knew this moment had been anticipated for years. Finally, the Palaxian High Minister spoke. "The humans have successfully engaged the Krell before. They have no historical conflicts with any Council species. Perhaps General Garcia could coordinate our response while each fleet maintains its own command structure." Murmurs filled the chamber. It was an elegant solution that allowed each species to save face. The humans would be advisors, not true leaders. Peter kept his expression neutral as he accepted the role. None of the delegates realized they had just placed control of the entire Council defense network in human hands. Within hours, Peter established a command center on Centauri Station. As Council fleet data flowed into human systems, Susan Taylor's team finally had access to the complete military capabilities of all 17 species. "Just as we predicted," she told Peter privately. "Their weapons systems have never been designed to work together." Peter nodded. "Implement Operation Unity." Across human space, shipyards that had appeared to be building simple vessels revealed their true purpose. Specialized command ships launched, each designed to coordinate the tactics of specific alien fleets. Meanwhile, human diplomat Nicole Harris contacted species from beyond Council space who had long maintained neutrality in galactic affairs. "The Krell Imperium threatens all independent worlds," she told the Zagaran Elder Council. "If they defeat the Galactic Council, your systems will be next." One by one, previously neutral powers joined the Human Coordinated Alliance. Within weeks, Krell expansion faced resistance from all sides. The Council praised human diplomatic skill, but failed to notice how Nicole had secured military access to strategic systems that even the Council had never been permitted to enter. When the combined fleet engaged the main Krell armada in the Battle of Orion's Edge, the Council expected a long and costly conflict. Instead, human commanders directed each alien fleet to target specific vulnerabilities in Krell defenses, vulnerabilities that William Russell's team had been documenting for years. Traxity energy weapons fired precisely at the frequency that disrupted Krell shields. Morven stealth ships attacked exact weak points in Krell hull designs. Jerkalp psionic weapons focused on the specific neural patterns of Krell commanders. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. The supposedly invincible Krell fleet was decimated. "How did you know their weaknesses so precisely?" asked the Venchar fleet commander. Peter smiled modestly. "Good intelligence and careful observation. Humans may lack your advanced technology, but we pay attention to details." Within 3 months, the combined forces had pushed the Krell back to their own borders. The Imperium that had threatened the galaxy for centuries sued for peace. In the Council Victory Celebration, human representatives were honored as heroes. Special medals were created to recognize their unexpected contribution to galactic security. "Who would have imagined," said the Palaxian High Minister in his speech, "that our youngest member species would help unite us against our greatest threat?" The delegates applauded politely, seeing the human victory as a fortunate alignment of circumstances. None of them realized that humans now controlled the most powerful military coalition in galactic history. None of them noticed that human ships had quietly mapped every defensive system of every Council world during the conflict. The Predator had shown its strength, and still, no one recognized what it truly was. 20 years after humans first met the Galactic Council, High Minister Daniel Edwards stood before the assembled delegates of all 17 species. His plain black suit contrasted with the elaborate ceremonial garments of the other representatives. "The recent crisis has shown that our current structure is no longer sufficient," Daniel said, his voice calm and reasonable. "I propose a reorganization of Council governance to improve efficiency and security." The chamber was quiet as the proposal was distributed. It seemed logical and moderate, a simple streamlining of bureaucratic processes. Few delegates bothered to examine the details carefully. This would place human administrators in charge of system security networks, noted an elderly Jurkal representative. Only as coordinators, Daniel explained smoothly. Each species would maintain control of their own systems. We're simply offering to handle the integration challenges as we did during the Krell conflict. The vote that followed was nearly unanimous. Only 3 delegates opposed the measure. The council praised human willingness to take on administrative burdens that other species found tedious. None of them realized they had just formally approved what had already become reality: human oversight of all critical galactic systems. In her retirement home on Palaxia Prime, former Ambassador Zix Troll watched the broadcast with growing concern. Though elderly now, her mind remained sharp. She had been watching human advancement for 2 decades, noticing patterns that others missed. Computer, display Council Commerce statistics by species, she requested. The data confirmed her suspicions. Humans now controlled 40% of critical resource production, 60% of interstellar shipping, 70% of information networks, and held key positions in every major council department. Yet no species viewed them as a threat. Humans had never conquered a single world. They had never demanded special privileges. They had simply made themselves essential. At the celebration marking the council reorganization, Zix Troll approached Ambassador Laura Wilson. The human woman had aged little in 20 years, another sign of the subtle biological enhancements Zix Troll suspected but couldn't prove. "You've accomplished something remarkable," Zix Troll said quietly. "No species has ever achieved such power without the others noticing." Laura smiled politely. "I'm not sure what you mean, Ambassador. Humans remain the least advanced member of the Council in many ways. Your ships look simple, but can outfight any fleet. Your bodies seem frail but resist diseases that kill others. Your weapons appear primitive, but target our exact weaknesses." Zix Troll leaned closer. "You've studied us all like prey." For a moment, Laura's diplomatic mask slipped. Her eyes showed something ancient and predatory, the look of a species that had evolved as hunters on a dangerous world. "We didn't conquer the galaxy," Laura said softly. "We simply solved problems no one else recognized until we became indispensable." "You're the apex predator hiding in plain sight," Zix Troll said. Laura smiled. "The best predators don't need to bare their teeth. By the time the prey notices them, it's already too late to run." Around them, the celebration continued. Council species mingled, believing the galaxy remained as it always had been, a careful balance of competing powers with humans as helpful junior partners. None of them noticed how council security officers deferred to human advisors, how resource distribution followed patterns established by human economists, how military vessels now carried human-designed communication systems. "What happens now?" Zix Troll asked. "Will you finally reveal yourselves as conquerors?" Laura shook her head. "Conquest is inefficient. We prefer partnership, on our terms. The galaxy functions better with humans guiding it, and every species benefits from our protection. And if a species threatens your control—" Laura's smile remained pleasant, but her eyes hardened slightly. "That would be unwise. But it won't happen. The beauty of our approach is that no one feels threatened enough to resist." As Zix Troll walked away, she understood the perfect trap humanity had created. By the time anyone recognized the predator in their midst, they had become dependent on it. Humanity hadn't needed to defeat the galaxy in battle. They had simply made themselves essential to its survival.